Welcome to your Daily 5 for Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. On the Friday show, I will talk about the background of how the movie I'm going to be reviewing today was made, because it is so complex and weird and bizarre that it deserves its own, basically, discussion point. There's no way I could fit that into 5 minutes. So all I'll say is that the movie that I'm talking about, which is titled Chime from this year, by director Kiyoshi Kurosawa, which I'm probably mispronouncing, was made in some type of NFT-style rental process where only so many copies of the movie were sold, and then each person who bought a copy could then rent it out as well. Or I saw verbiage that said, in fact, I think the article I linked says, do whatever they want with, which might explain why I've seen copies of this on YouTube, although they sometimes seem to shift around, so I don't know if that's entirely legal. But I watched the movie because it's a short film. It's about 44 or 5 minutes long. I found a beautiful copy of it on YouTube with subtitles and everything, which I assume was by one of the owners of the film. I don't even know how many copies were sold. So anyway, all of that aside, because we'll get into that on Friday, the film itself, it's very divisive. You're going to find reviews that think it's fantastic and reviews that absolutely hate it. It is a no middle ground type of film in most reviews. And a lot of that, I think, the reason a lot of people seem to dislike it is because it is heavily reliant on you as the viewer to decide to interpret, I guess is the better word, what actually happened. Now, I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to spoil anything, but I could think of, when I got to the end of the movie, and I thought about it for quite a while after I finished it, I came up with at least 3 different angles on it. Now, there are probably more. I expect that there are probably a lot of different ways to read this film. It's not very heavy on gore, so don't come to it for that. It doesn't do really any jump scares whatsoever, so don't come to that, which I don't like jump scares, so that's my type of film. It really is about tension, atmosphere, and making you wonder what's going to happen in a scene. There's a lot of long, lingering shots in this movie, where you just see kind of dark corners of spaces or very ordinary looking areas that you are starting to expect after a little while that something will happen. And many times nothing does. And that might be setting up in the next scene where you don't expect anything weird to happen, something does. Or it might just be that it is preying on the idea of what you expect out of a film like this. Or it's trying to mirror the unsettled feeling that some of the characters have. And I think it's tremendously effective at that. Very similar to Kurosawa's film Cure, which is just one of the best Japanese horror films you could possibly watch. And I felt like there was a lot of Cure in this movie, and I really, really like Cure, so I was very happy with how this movie unfolded. But there's no way to get around the fact that when it ends, you are left to fill in a lot of the details yourself. Or, again, I think the better word is to interpret what you were shown, and to decide what things you were shown meant something literally and what may have been metaphor. You can do a completely, hey, what the movie showed you is exactly what happened, read. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the movie absolutely does invite you to go beyond what the images literally showed you. And I think for some people, that's not what they wanted out of this movie. I thought it was excellent. I thought the atmosphere was fantastic. The use of sound is great. The acting, the way that certain spaces were shot and certain angles were held and moved around, I thought all of it worked really, really effectively in creating a very unsettled film where there's a certain point where you just never achieve a comfort level again. You're always kind of waiting to see if something's going to happen and wondering why certain characters are doing certain things, and whether it's sinister or it's just that the character observing the other character is seeing something that isn't happening. I think that's great. I can't be more specific because I'll start spoiling things. I will talk about it at length on Friday. If you want the details, Friday's show is going to have them. But in general, I would say, since this does appear to be in a lot of places on YouTube, you can watch it for pretty much nothing, or whatever you pay for YouTube Premium, I guess. But I would seek this out if you liked Cure. Or I know he also did Pulse. So if you liked, but this felt like a very, very close movie to Cure for me. So if you liked Cure, which also had its own ambiguous nature, it did not explain everything either, although it definitely explained more than this movie. This is a movie that's going to require you to bring something to it. So if that sounds interesting, and again, if you were a fan of Cure, you're probably really going to enjoy this. So again, the title is Chime from this year by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. Excellent film. Couldn't recommend it highly enough. Later.